Welcome to our Ayurveda talk. Tonight, we are actually going to be talking about the ego and how the ego interacts with the different elements and how they show up as the doshas. Remember, the doshas are the different constitutions. So, I went to a training this weekend. It was really great. It was three different main people, very different backgrounds, which was great. One gal was a medical doctor. She used to be an ER doc. She was fan freaking tastic because she really is incorporating uh, into Western medicine into her practice a lot of the alternative therapies like breath work and tapping and just somatic work. So that's fantastic. The other person, which is where we're going to kind of divert to here, he basically he has a podcast where he talks about Kundalini. And I became very interested in his podcast because he talks about a lot of stuff, but he talks about the chakras and how Kundalini moves through the different chakras. And he does it in a way that's very clear and also provides a course. And what I found out from him was that I actually have had a Kundalini rising about 15 years ago, maybe a little longer. And at the time I was in a meditation group, I was doing advanced yoga training. And yet none of those individuals that were running those different organizations knew how to help me. So I went through some pretty hard stuff that lasted a really long time. We're not going to go into that. I will do a whole nother podcast on that. But what we're going to talk about is he talked about how the ego really ends up having three main beliefs. And those three main beliefs correlate to certain emotions. And when I was listening to him talk, I said, that really can be boiled down to the elements. So I'm going to use his talk and the notes that I got from his talk and talk about how he relates the ego, that there are only three emotions according to him. Now, he also references the Course of Miracles. If you've never done the Course of Miracles, it's so fantastic. I've done it several times. I'm doing it again. But the Course of Miracles is a way of connecting with your soul. It really is. And I like it because it's not based on any religion. So the three beliefs, though, that he broke everything down to are, the first one is a belief in lack. And that he said, when you believe you are lacking, then you believe that you're incomplete. And if you believe that you're incomplete, that leads to sadness. Well, depression is the main emotion of kapha. And kapha is made up of earth and water. Those are the two elements that govern kapha constitution. So kapha constitution moves through the world, though, in such a way that they tend to get heavy. They tend to get stuck. They tend to get stagnant. So if you're looking at the beliefs, like I believe that I'm lacking, it actually can fall into all the different categories. But if it does lack leads you towards sadness and depression, that's kapha. That would be a kapha either imbalance or you are kapha. And so it's really easy. Your tendency is to move into feeling depressed and sad. Okay. So when you have sadness, it creates a pattern of where you want to take things and keep them. That's totally Kapha. Kapha have a hard time letting things go. Kapha, they're heavy, right? It's earth and water. Those are hard things to manipulate. And so when Kapha has something, it's very challenging for them to let go. So how do you deal with Kapha? Well, if you're using Ayurveda, the way that you deal with Kapha is you have stagnation, you're stuck, you're attached, and it's causing sadness. You want to take and keep. You don't want to share. And taking and keeping then leads to attachment. Okay? And they have a hard time letting go. I smudged my house today and now it's like getting in my throat and irritating it. Okay, so Kapha gets stuck. How do you deal with Kapha? You stimulate. You move it. You lighten things. That's how you deal with Kapha, right? So if you're heavy, you're stuck, you're stagnant, you notice that you're attached, which is coming from a belief of lack, then what you're going to want to do is start to bring in more movement, lighten things up. So you stay away from heavy foods. You stay away from things that make you feel heavy mentally, things that make you heavy emotionally. You lighten everything, mentally, physically, emotionally. Okay. So that first belief leads to attachment. Okay. The second belief is expectation and attachment. So my happiness, this is the ego. This is the ego's way of thinking. My happiness depends on a certain outcome. Who cares about goals? Who cares about outcomes? Pitta. Pitta does. Pitta people they are governed, it's the fire element that's controlling that constitution. Pitta people, when they don't have a goal, when they don't have a task, when they don't have something that they're going towards, they're lost. They're besides themselves. They get so anxious and frustrated and angry. So when you have a belief that your happiness and your content and everything is based on stuff outside of you, on certain outcomes. I'm going to be happy when I get that new car. I'm going to be happy when I'm in that new relationship. I'm going to be happy when I have a child. I'm going to be happy when I get my puppy. I have puppies, so if you want one, I have a puppy for you. I'm going to be happy, when I get the money. Goal is something towards you're going towards, and that is how Pitta individuals function. Oh, my internet's saying it's unstable. So Pitta people are goal oriented. Fire moves fast. They're like a laser beam. All right, that's why they burn. They can burn in their words. They can burn. They get emotional thinking. Or a hot thinking, emotional, heated emotions, anger, anger, anger. That's Pitta. So if anger is what's happening, if you're applying Ayurveda, you're dealing with Pitta. You're dealing with the fire element. And what do we do when we're dealing with the fire element? We cool it down. So you start using lifestyle tools and diet tools. Just like with Kapha, you're dealing with heaviness that's causing sadness, stagnation, depression. Then you need to lighten things up. With Pitta, you're dealing with heat. You need to cool things down. So you do that with your diet. You do that with your lifestyle. One of the things that I tell my Pitta individuals is your mantra is ease. You're going to do things with ease, and they need to be more playful. They need to not be increasing the intensity in their body, in their mind, in their emotions. In other words, they have to start bringing awareness into, oh my gosh, every time I wait to the last minute to do my work, it causes all this stress. And they like that, right? Because it puts them up. They're under the gun, right? Pressure, heat. But it stresses them out, and then it ends up causing other problems. So you could start managing some of the heat by cooling it down, right? We're going to have a whole nother talk on that. So anger is pitta. But according to Aaron Abke, it's part of one of the beliefs, that second belief, that I can't be happy. This is the ego saying this. I can't be happy unless I have all these things. It's connected to stuff. And those are the pitta individuals. Okay. So the emotion of anger then drives a pattern of happiness is outside of ourselves. Anger shows up when you don't get what you want. Pitta people really, really are driven to get what they want. I was at this training. I'm watching everybody. And you have those pitta people that are running to the front so that they can make sure they get seen, or they can make sure that they get to their seat, or they're the VIP people. Pitta people like to be really important. Okay. All right. So the pattern of that expectation or needing to reach the goal, which causes emotion, it creates this attachment resistance type of dynamic. So that individual begins to always chase things. They're always going after something. And then they have resistance, which is causing pressure, heat to build. So this belief that your happiness is basically controlled by things outside of you, stuff. This belief then generates the next belief, which leads to control. All right. Now, control is basically fear. When there's fear, you have to control your environment, right? Who does that? Vata. Vata does that. Vata is the one that gets stuck in fear. Vata is governed and ruled by their two elements, ether and air. So they're spacey individuals, and they have a lot of movement. Air moves. It's like the wind. It can be calm, but you can really manipulate it quickly, and it can move fast. And they oftentimes will spin around in their head. When you have a belief and you are lacking, that then leads to sadness, depression, kapha, which then leads to anger, because you think that, oh, I can't be happy unless I acquire all these things. My happiness is outside of me. This is all ego thinking. Then that pitta individual will get angry. Okay. And then it leads to needing to control things and fear. Oh my God, if I don't control this person, then my life is going to fall apart. If I don't get that job, if I don't have a certain amount of money, if I don't get those people to approve of me, right? That's fear. That's all fear thinking, and that's vata. So what do we do with vata? Vata is too much movement. They're not grounded. So how do we help vata with their fear? We start to ground them. We use our diet and our lifestyle to calm the body. So it's physical. You're physically doing things that ground, that bring in stillness, that bring in stability. So the lifestyle, they need routine. Routine is stability. They need food that's grounding. No more raw foods, salads, popcorn, snacking all day long. No. They eat at the same time every day. They eat foods that are going to nourish, bring in substance. They got to build muscle, create more mass for themselves, because they're ether, they're air, and they're dealing with fear. Okay, so that third belief of the ego is signaled by fear. And Fear basically is loss of control. And it then causes a lack in trust. You can't trust if you are in a fearful place. You can't think, oh, I'm just going to have faith, everything's going to work out. So when we start talking about abstract things, I went to this training. It's really great. And it's fantastic. But when you are dealing with a lot of abstract stuff, it means that the mind is trying to figure things out. We can use Ayurveda anytime you go to anything. You can always bring in the elements because we are made up of the elements. Everything in nature is made up of the elements. You can literally look at, how does space behave? How does air behave? How does fire behave? How does water behave? How does earth behave? And based on all of those qualities and characteristics, you can really start to work with your life in a way that brings you balance. And if you're dealing with these ego constructs that are not serving us, by the way, you could start to bring in some balance. And then that is going to actually help you deal with, hey, this way of thinking isn't serving me. And it's a whole nother level of Ayurveda, right? You're dealing now with the gunas, the level of the mind, and how that's all energy too, right? So earth energy, water energy, fire, air, and ether, they all behave a little differently. Understanding how they're showing up in your body really is going to help you have some balance in your life. So I really, if you guys have never heard of Aaron Abke, he's really beautiful young man. We grew up in the same place. We grew up in San Jose. He grew up there too. And when I heard his story, he is a beautiful individual. He's young. He's young. He could be my son. But he's extremely wise, and he's really being of service and providing information for people in a very clear way. But what I want to do is kind of take it to the Ayurvedic place. Like, okay, how do you take what he's talking about and apply these really ancient principles that have been around for thousands of years? And so that is how you do it. So if you're looking at the ego with these three beliefs, sadness, depression, anger, and fear, control, those are the doshas, you guys. Those are the doshas. Those are the three doshas. Isn't that interesting? I find it very interesting. So we can use Ayurveda as a way to bring ourselves into balance and also work with dealing with these ego constructs. And, oh, that's just my ego. I can use lifestyle and diet and certain ways of living that are going to help me deal with this feeling of lack and depression and sadness that I have. Okay. So I really love that we had this talk because it's just kind of hopefully taking us to a whole nother level with Ayurveda. Okay, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Now I am going to put a link to Aaron Abke's YouTube channel. I really want you guys to check him out. He's a beautiful soul, young man, but beautiful message. And he does talk about Kundalini and the chakras in a way that's so crystal clear. And I want to definitely support him and what he's doing because it's a message that we all need. Okay, so let's get started with our practice. We're done with our talk for tonight. We're going to move on to our practice, pitta reducing practice, because it is freaking hot outside. All right.